let's talk. So last time, we're going to start real quick with you. Oh, cheers, of course. Kipp's the first one to raise his glass.
Of course.
Pros, my friends.
All right.
Bart, I think, Bart, you're still at the office, right?
We'll wait till after start the
Yeah, you look like you dress like a golf pro.
I hate golf.
So anyway, how the way this whole show came about is, if you guys tuned in last month, October 12th, it was actually my birthday show. Kipp had Kipp on. It was going to be a special birthday gift to myself. Going to have Kipp on, and things kind of went a little Spanish, right? They got a little pear-shaped, right, Kipp?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just a little bit. It was just, it was frustrating just because I was trying to speak to all the hard work that Bart and the team put together, and Robert, but it was hard. And so that's why when you and I talked, I said, if you could get Bart on here and Robert on here, it would be fantastic to be able to fill in the details and things, because there's so much to it. And it was such a, I'm biased, but it was such a well done investigation, very thorough. And so I'm glad that you had us on, and I think it deserves some attention. So,
well, I think, honestly, it kind of worked out, because here we have 4 guys that are busy. You guys are on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and just the cards, things happen to be there. And then Phil, of course, joins the gang, because I hit him up 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Yep. And we'll tell that story going down the road. So, okay. So the important thing is, let's talk about Bart. Let's talk about the evidence initiative and the Sierra project. And why don't you, for people that are, let's bring people into the fold on where that whole thing started before we get into the nuts and bolts of the whole thing.
Well, I'm also a member of longtime BFRO and Olympic Project. Derek's a good friend of mine. And we're going back now to 2011. Derek had kind of brought me in on, the purported shootings in the Sierras, Justin Smea and his partner. And we went on a trip to the site. It was myself, Meldrum, Mychinsky, Bobo. There's, a handful of us went. We were there for a couple days, and I got to be pretty good friends with Justin. And simultaneously, while this was going on, there was also the Melba Ketchum thing was going on. And
now this is 2012?
No, this would be back in 11, which was kind of the impetus to all of this, and how the Sierra Site project got created. And really how it did, it was kind of a marriage of a bunch of things happening at one time. And one of them was myself and Tyler Huggins from Canada doing the independent testing of samples to vet Melba Ketchum and her claims before, embarrassing the whole Bigfoot community. And so from that, I got to be good friends with Justin. I actually was holding the booth for a while that he had because we were keeping them out of her hands. And what happened is I wrote this polygraph. This is kind of to summarize everything. Rosa Hebe was kind of doing a documentary film on it. It's not too much my thing, but he was a good guy. And, he'd been coming up, and they had Justin. They wanted me to write a polygraph for Justin. I have a little bit of a criminology background, Fresno State.
Oh, okay. All right.
And unfortunately, they only gave about 24 hours to do it, because I didn't know they were going to SAC to do it that quick. And I actually had Bobo in town visiting me. And they go up, he passes the test, 100%. And then they ended up making a track to the Sierra site. It was, unplanned. And I think they were just going to take a look at it, get some stock footage, whatever. He was going to give him a tour around. Well, they ended up staying the night. And there was, Justin, Rose, Sean, and 3 others that were with them. And apparently in the middle of the night, I got the call the next day, but in the middle of the night, we're talking 3, 4 in the morning, I guess all hell broke loose southwest side of the tree line. Justin, they described it kind of like Jurassic Park, just, stomping, and sounded like bipedal, stomping and noises. It sounded like a biped ran off. They were kind of all unprepared, never expected anything to happen. I don't think they even did anything to initiate any of that. And so, as I was saying earlier, the Sierra site was never beautiful area. I love it, off Highway 49 up here in Northern California, but it was never on my radar, so to speak, as to research. What happened was this event, the activity they had, that was kind of the impetus that, oh my God, I got to get my ass up there sometime, the next couple of weeks. And that was we kind of all coordinated, myself, Ro, Justin, but we weren't able to put anything together till like maybe, I don't know, a day or two, 36, 48 hours before. We kind of put together a quickie, for me 2 nights and for Justin 2 nights. For most of them, it was actually just 1 night had gone up. And a lot of the guys were saying they had never even met each other in person. I probably knew everybody, but Michael Lorenz, who was with us, good footprint cast guy. He's been around a long time. It was my first time actually meeting him in person, though we knew each other through the field. And so over the course of that, there were 6 of us there over that last 24 hours. I shouldn't even say that. Sean didn't get up there till maybe 3 hours before the footage happened. But, we were up there, had nothing experienced the first night, myself and Justin, and went to bed late. I mean, I remember we went to bed, it was like 5:36 a.m. He was already spent. So from hunting and doing some other stuff that he was doing before. So he's really tired.
Now, just to jump in, where were you living at the time?
I've never moved. So I've always been Carmel, Monterey.
Okay. So Justin was Citrus Heights, I think, Sacramento, correct?
Citrus Heights. And that's an area I've gone up a lot of my life because my aunt, my cousins, Bigfoot friends, I got them all there. So I go up quite a bit. I mean,
you ever been to what was the name of that rock club there, dude? The Boardwalk?
That's Santa. Are you talking about Santa Cruz?
No, Citrus. I lived in Sacramento for a long time, so I remember Citrus Heights. So
they had a America Live or something like that.
America Dive, dude.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys scramble up there, right? So then
Justin picked them up. We went up. The guys were coming the next day. We didn't even know what time they're going to be coming in. Michael Lorenz was the first one. Got in there late morning. Then we had Todd and Ro, who drove up from Southern California, and they had just met in person before coming up. They coordinated to drive up together, and they get up there. It's like a 12-hour drive. Then Sean was the last one to arrive, and he got in there about 9 p.m. because he picked me and Ro up going for a night hike. And there was nothing going on. The only thing that was going on is it was the most, all my nights in the woods, I would say, I have never, and I live here by Pebble Beach, so the golf courses with how many deer we have, I have never seen that many deer converged on such a pinched area of maybe a couple miles or so, through the meadow we're in. And there was a lot. I mean, probably 70, 80, maybe multiple herds that were kind of just converged. The sun and the moon had kind of aligned together that night. And, Sean gets up there. It's now probably midnight. I'm actually fading out. I mean, I kind of try to go hard when I do have the time to get out. And never forget, we had this little fire going, and I'm just looking at Sean. And I'm like, God, should I take him for a walk or should I just hit it? I got to get out of there early in the morning. Nothing.
Now, Sean's a newbie, right?
Sean's like probably his second night in the woods. Imagine that. His first night, he has that happen, which really,
the audio footage is funny on the. Go ahead.
Yeah, it blew his mind. And so I kind of looked at him. I'll never forget because I just made like this derogatory remark to him. And I said, all right, come on, we're going to go walk. I'm going to shed your fear of the dark. Let's go. And so the intention was to walk about, we're just taking for a walk for about a mile or so. There's an eastern vista. The camp kind of whips around uphill. It's off a spur road. If you blink, you miss it off the main Forest Service road. So we were going up, and it was funny because Sean did a couple calls off the eastern vista. What the hell? Let him do it. And the funny part at the time is if those are Bigfoots, they were there the whole time while we kind of got our hand caught in the cookie jar doing that, because it was only minutes later that, I saw them and we had the record button going. And he did those, and we kind of just walked around uphill, and I told him, stop. And I was trying to get my bearing. This is only the second time I've been at this site at this point. And I'm looking down what I think is towards camp. And the reason I did.
Now, hang on a second. I just want to pause right there because I do have a layout that I got from Phil's.
Great.
Phil's footage. I'm just going to open it up. You can talk over it, but it's just a screen capture from Phil's amazing breakdown on this. And then you can talk over it to kind of give people a little bit more perspective of where things are. And I'll put it up there, but you can talk over it.
Yeah. So let's see I did this one. Yeah. Okay. So you see where Justin actually was. He was asleep. He was out. He was probably out about 9:30. I think he was out even before Sean even got there. But myself, Todd and Ro, we were all up. Sean, and so you see where the subjects ended up being, which we didn't know.
Right.
Across from that road. That's Michael Lorenz, and he hit it kind of early, and he was in his vehicle.
Right. So he's in a pickup truck, correct?
Correct.
Right.
And then we kind of walk around this eastern vista, and it's beautiful. I mean, you just see down, you can almost see down where it cuts off into farmland, and your sound carries a long way, right? Mm-hmm. So we come up to where you see Bart and Sean. And I stopped at what I thought was maybe the vantage point of a good vantage point of our camp. And the reason why I did that, we learn things as we go along in our experiences. And I had my best visual was in 2007 in Washington, Bumpy Lake. And I watched it for about 3.5 minutes. Most definitive experience, I mean, could be, but the technology wasn't there. We couldn't just press a button and record like we could at this point now in 2012. Mm-hmm. So anyways, but that subject was quietly watching the human activity, did nothing to initiate investigation. I just happened to catch it. What the hell? So I stop and I'm looking and I'm running audio in my head. Sean's standing right near me and I look down and I see, activity that looks bipedal, but I can't really pinpoint where the guy is. So obviously the first thing in my mind is, oh, okay, that's the guys I'm looking at.
Okay. So let's stop right there.
Okay.
And let's play it. Right. So we're going to play exactly where you went up to. We'll play the first couple of minutes of when you first turn on the thermal, and then we'll go to there. I think that's to keep people in perspective. I think we're is that okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Let me see if I can find it now. So I think we got this one right here. This is what we got here. And again, you can talk over that. So Bart, this is where I think you were telling us, describing the situation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And I'm looking down.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and say that again.
So I'm looking down, and it's kind of hard to gauge because you have I have no baseline at that point, just for size or distance. I'm assuming I'm probably somewhere around 100.
Now, is that downhill from?
Yeah,
if you see,
downhill.
It's downhill
from that point in the road. And, I started seeing what looked like bipedal subjects kind of loitering, which initially it looks like a tree gap. That is not a tree gap. It's actually the back of a grandfather tree that gets no sunlight. Therefore, it gives off no IR, doesn't radiate IR at night. Hence, it looks cold and dark, and it looks almost like a gap or a. That's just the back of the tree in a tree gap.
We got some down there. Oh shit. Oh shit, Sean. Just stay absolutely silent. I think I got some on here. In between the trees. Holy shit, I'm not shooting you.
Keep in mind what I see through that thermal 320, 240 is also better than the actual onboarding video. If that makes any sense.
That's a good thing to bring up while we're talking here. We can pause it here. Is I think Phil, you did some research on the FLIR camera with this, right? Correct?
I just examined what he had captured and his statements as to the viability of the camera at that time. Apparently, it wasn't functioning well.
Yeah, and so what that is, I'm glad you guys brought that up.
Yeah.
I just, for the sake of transparency, because this is something that I found after, you could see in the camera that the resolution is 320, 240. It's a FLIR H series. It was one of the best handheld units at the time. Cost about
and they're not cheap, right?
$9,000 at the time. And
well, you're making all that Bigfoot money, so hell.
Looking down, so like when you have, for instance, I've got 2 kids. You have a kid, you haven't seen how old, like how much they've grown because you're with them all the time, right? Until you get a baseline, maybe see them with a different kid and go, holy shit, my kid sprouted up. Well, the same thing with thermal imaging, especially at that time. I didn't have a baseline until after the event. I actually looked through Kurt Brandenburg, my dear friend Washington's thermal imager, which he had the same unit. And I went, holy shit, that there's washout in my screen. So there's 2 issues because I had the first unit. So I had the bugs. I couldn't correct the time date stamp, even though it was the right correct date. The time was off by an hour. and the updates weren't working, but there was washout. So I mentioned it. Would the footage be that much better? Probably not, but maybe 5%. I mean, so it's not as significant as it kind of sounds, but that's just what in real time, that's kind of how it unfolded. And that precipitated, of course, the letter I ended up sending to FLIR and got the funny, the predictable and funny response back that makes Kipp chuckle.
What was Kipp? What was the response from FLIR?
Dear Mr. Cutino, we're sorry your Bigfoots were blurry. Which I'm sure as they were writing it, they're given the.
Oh, they're probably still telling the story. Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah. They're still telling the story too.
Yeah, but weren't they all over finding Bigfoot one year? They had them all over the freaking tops of the trucks and everywhere. So and they're a Northern California company, right?
No, FLIR's not. I think the Russians have FLIR now.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, that's been that way for a while. I switched to Pulsar about 6 years ago.
All right, so you see where we're at right now. So punch it forward. Keep going.
Now, as we're watching this, one thing to keep in mind:
Yeah,
we were in direct line with the campfire.
Sean, I think we're looking into
Hang on a second, Phil. Go ahead and say that again.
I said if we were directly in line with the campfire, with the camp, you'd see the campfire just blazing right now.
Right. So the campfire
that we're out in that area.
For layman's terms, the campfire would be at 9 o'clock and severely downhill.
About 10 o'clock.
Okay.
From
that's right.
But it would be white hot.
But so obstructed back behind that vegetation, it would be hard to see.
But it would be white hot, right, Phil?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And the stationary subject is what I suspected initially might be the fire. See on the right, that's the stationary subject that we think is a subject. That's a heat signature. It's not supposed to be there.
Now, is that the grandfather tree there with the dead spot? I have my map.
It almost looks like, dare I say the word portal, but it almost looks like a little portal there.
Don't say that, dude. I'm going to have to break out all the red circles, and I don't have them ready. Okay, all right. So because if in at first impression, and I think if people look at this without the explanation, Bart, is okay. Oh, I'm looking at a campfire, right? I'm looking at a campfire.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. But go ahead, Phil. You had to say something there.
No, I was just saying. Later on, of course, they evidence shows that it was actually beyond that point and to the left and down a hill, down a slope.
Yeah, well, I think you pointed out here quite accurately, right? And this was again, Phil, I'm glad you're here because I ripped off all the stuff. And so copyright infringement will be probably posted to your YouTube channel. But this is, so if you have the subjects I listed there, so if you look at where Justin Todd Rosa is, Phil, that is downhill, correct?
That's down that slope. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep rolling.
Yeah, I'm recording. Sean, I think we're looking into I'm not kidding you.
I like this where Sean gets scared.
I'm not kidding you. Holy shit.
Really, out of all the people I got here with you one time, and you happen to catch one of their own.
What I'm looking at, it's looking up at us, and it's behind the tree, and it keeps poking its head out.
Okay, so when you say that, I wanted to stop it right there because I was curious. Are you now? I'm looking at the mass between the two large trees.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about the one on the left by the Godfather tree or the whatever that's called?
You're about the one you're talking about on the right. The right is the stationary subject.
Yes.
It looks like there's kind of a dark mound or something below it. That's
right.
That's the stationary subject. Then you
now
have
you're looking through an ocular, right? So you're looking for very narrow sighting. So when you say you're seeing something poke its head out, what are you talking about?
Now, keep in mind too, the timing. Roe had to. I'm trying to remember how far seconds wise the timing, how close he got. I think he got pretty close but as you're hearing me talk on this, he had to match the audio with
Oh, okay.
the
All
thermal
right.
to try to
Fair
time it. So
Yep.
there'll be a couple things that'll be like, wait, what is he looking at? Like, why isn't, it's there. I mean, there's a little bit of a delay there.
And then go ahead.
Oh, so through that gap, one of the things that I was noticing right there is the subjects to me. You got to remember, even back then, now we've got 17 years experience, but I mean, even back then, there's probably, 10, 12 of us in the field. I would definitely put like Cliff, Bobo, Moneymaker. We've used these things so much that one of the things we could do is discriminate a little bit more of what we actually see through that thermal world, if you will, right?
Right.
So looking through, one of the things that I'm noticing that's interesting is it looks like a biped, and it's kind of loitering. Do you see how like there's some hesitation, patience? It looks like it's kind of loitering. It's not like just directly walking back and forth yet or any of that. Just kind of patiently, like kind of just moving a little bit in and out.
Now let me ask Phil about that. Phil, did you notice what did you notice with that particular subject right there?
Yeah, it's in a gap. In fact, you'll see two subjects that enter and leave in a gap between the trees. And that's, I think, is what Bart's referring to, whereas you can see one kind of just swaying out a bit and then back.
Yes.
So should I scrub forward a little bit here?
Yeah, you have to go forward a little bit.
Okay. Let's see where I'm at here. Say forward or back. Where are we at? I'm at 9:44 into that. So Bart, do you know the timestamp on that roughly?
It's been so long. Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went that way.
Kind of
Go ahead and go.
Like,
what was
There
that?
you go.
Okay.
keep going.
That's where they were at. The one that
Yeah.
so they're in that area.
At this point, Sean's holding on to my weights. And I'm telling him, you breathe with me, you move together.
Camp out there.
It's funny, we heard a step branch break behind us, I'll never forget. And we both went, I just told him, you know what, forget about that, right? I just pretend you didn't hear that, right? Focus right down here.
It's fine. Just come on.
It looks like it's moving. It's like
The stationary guy subtly moved, but I'm not sure where we are in the film because you got to remember, these things would disappear 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes at a time, and you didn't know if they're coming back. I mean, you don't know is that it? Is it over? Are they coming back? Am I going to get a better shot? Is there nothing? So I knew at that time, and this is no knock on them, but with the personnel I had, the equipment I had, and everything I had, I knew that at that point, the best thing is just film as much as possible, deal with the questions later. That was good. And
So-
I would do the same thing today in the same circumstance.
Now, Phil, do you remember how early is it in the first clip or the second clip once the battery goes by and they bring it back where those steps are?
It's earlier.
It's earlier,
yeah.
so it's maybe in the first 5 minutes.
I thought it was later than that.
Okay.
It might be later than that, but I know that it was in the earlier. It was absolutely before we went back.
Right.
It's a suit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to scrub here. And once again, folks, if you're just tuning in, you caught us on a great night. So keep things civil and play nice. In the chat, what seems like everybody is doing good. We're going to get to your questions in just a minute here. We are scrubbing through to try to find exactly.
You may want to, for the sake of time and for all of them,
we have time, dude.
But I'm saying you may want to use either to get so you can see the scene and they're not waiting. We don't know how long it's take till they're going to.
No, they can wait as long as they freaking want, dude.
And make them wait. But I was saying either polling or remember the 5-minute continuous I sent you, which
I do have that. Hang on a second.
Well, I don't know. I'm at the edge of my seat right now. I've got to see this.
You're going to sit there and you're going to wait. Yeah, okay. Okay, we have inverted therm, right? Is that the one you want?
Yeah, and on that, I think it's like a minute in. somewhere like less than a minute in or just over a minute in, you'll see. Now they're black hots. This person, they switched it. So it's 5-minute continuous action out of the 50 minutes, whatever it was. These are the 5 minutes that there's subjects present and there's actual movement. And they're actually, I always prefer white hot, but in hindsight, the way this looks, you could see the subjects better. There you go. There's one crossing the gap right now.
Okay.
You'll see them better. I would just let it play. Let them see it all. There we go.
See, now that's not a deer. I'm sorry. There's nothing.
There you go. There's the step.
That's the money shot right there. So let's back that up just a second and play it again.
You can see how the lower half precedes the upper half.
Yeah.
Drops that leg and goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you a question. We can talk over this. What prompted you to stop at that particular spot and stare in the thermal that direction? Was there noise being made, or because we're going to get down the road to the rock throwing and stuff like that?
Absolutely no noise whatsoever. Matter of fact, the only thing that got me to stop is we're walking by and there was a gap there, and looking down towards camp, I wanted to get my bearings, and it's also was habitual from what I experienced actually 5 years to the week in Washington, believe it or not, before that, and seeing, like I was saying, seeing the subject that came in and watched the vantage point of camp for what I like to call the sniper position.
Right. All right. So a lot of people say, okay, you know what? It's fucking big deal, dude. I've seen thermal fucking footage. It's not that important. Fuck this, dude. It's just thermal footage. Well, this is where the conversation really needs to begin. I think if we stop everything right here and say, okay, you've got some shit walking between the tree, and I'm not impressed. Right. So where do you go from there? This is where if we stop the whole episode and go, there we go. This is where you reach out, and this is where things are different. This is how everybody should treat shit, trying to figure out this stuff. Go ahead, Bart.
Okay. So where do you want me to pick up back?
I want you to when you get home and you realize that you have some shit that you need to figure out, and you make some phone calls to your friends. That's what I want.
This is kind of how it went down that night, just so you know.
Take your time, because I'm going to pour myself a drink.
Okay, so we had filmed. I was only taking Sean. That night got cold. It was a warm day in August. It got cold that night. 58% waxing moon, and so we had gone. I'd only taken the set of batteries I had in there and an extra set. Back then, in those things, the cold, you get about an hour, 2 hours, you're good, right?
What happened to you to buy Rayovac?
And I was filming the whole time. There's actually footages of me too, trying to get another window on them, and it was the only spot where I can see them. So eventually, an hour, whatever it was, goes by. Sean and I said, okay, we're going to go back to camp. We're not done. We're going to go back to camp. We're going to see if we can see them going back to camp. And you're looking through windows in the trees, doing that half circle back to camp. Sean started getting a little brave. I'm proud of him. He came in there with me, and we got back into camp. I told the guys immediately. You'll hear on the audio. I talked to the guys, Roe and Todd. I think Roe was fading out, falling asleep. Justin was already out. And I told them, I said, guys, I go, you see, they said, hey, we're seeing like silhouettes or whatever up in the gap. This was, I think, Roe and Todd had both said this. And I said, guys, I think I'm up there filming squatches somewhere down here, and I can't, pinpoint it. I told everyone, just be inconspicuous. Don't keep looking up towards the tree gaps. Just play dumb, whatever. In the meantime, as I'm talking to them, I'm trying to explain to them it's not even as good as my green footage. I think I made the comment on there, but we got them, not thinking, okay, well, I'm still going to get them again. And I'll never forget looking up in those tree gaps. And you got to remember, this was only my second round of going there. I'd been there a year earlier. I never believed that they would be that close to the guys. Therefore, when I was looking up, I was looking way past them up into the higher gaps. I never believed, because we didn't know that they were only 35 yards from the guys.
And that's the thing I want to bring this up right now, and you can talk over it. It's not like it is here on the East Coast, where it's maple trees and spruce and all sorts of birch and stuff. It's very sparse trees.
700 feet. It's the Sierras. Clearly, the trees, they're fighting for resources at that elevation. I would say it's lower montane, red fir. really beautiful environment, but you do have the clusters of trees, and you do get dark. You do get dark
Right.
canopy, and you can see.
Right, but that leads perfectly to what you were saying about having the nighttime light, because the moon was not. It was half full or whatever it was, but it was a clear and it was a moonlit night. So
Put it this way: from their position, from Todd and Rose's position, I'm almost surprised that they saw anything, because even though the subjects turned out to be only 35 yards away, we didn't know that obviously at the time. Just imagine from their position to the naked eye, it was like a dark wall, because you've got the ambient light coming up from the fire, and they're in the canopy. They're underneath that canopy, going back and forth in that gap.
all right, okay. So Bart, right there. So you get home, right? We're gonna because everybody's in everybody in the text is going, fuck the fucking.
Well, hold on, because you're missing it. If I go, I'm going home. You're gonna miss.
Okay.
The we walk.
Okay, go ahead.
Bear with me. We walk back up, right?
Mhm.
Got the batteries. Walk back up. After a few minutes, oh my God, there they are again. And that's when the rock drop and the subsequent rock throw happened.
True, and I do have that.
The only thing they heard in camp was the ricochet, the boom off the tree, right? So eventually, there was nothing for like 15, 20 minutes, whatever. And I just made the decision to call it. I made everyone go to bed, pretend like you're going to bed, whatever. And I really did at that time, that I was going to catch 2 or 3 bipeds descending down the tree line, and I was going to be clever and catch them for my car. Well, I ended up, at some point during the night, I woke up about 4 hours later with my neck outside my thermal. I mean, I just left my heart on the field those 2 days. I was done.
Well, you got to be the adrenaline's got to be going crazy, dude.
Oh, yeah. I remember calling my wife.
This is what everybody fucking dreams of.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And so then I drove home with Justin the next day, and so I have no fucking laptop. It's getting repaired. That's how quick this trip was thrown together. It was already being repaired downtown Monterey, right? So I've got nothing to review. I don't know where they were. I don't know what the footage looks like, although I have an idea from experience what it's going to look like. And I remember me and Justin were driving together, because I dropped him in SAC. I couldn't review my own footage until I drove the 6.5 hours home. First thing I did was send the files from my wife's computer right to Kirk Brandenburg in Washington. He was the first person that actually watched the footage. And then I heard
you emailed the MP4 to him?
To him, and he watched it actually before I did. And when I heard him go, ooh, I was like, okay, I'm ready to watch it now, right? And I remember, going on and it was just your whole time going home. You're just like, wait a minute, I'm almost certain that's probably what they were, because in my mind, I'm like, we know they're bipeds. There almost certainly couldn't be anybody unassociated with our party. In this case, I didn't.
Well, that's where the investigation comes in, right?
Correct.
Right.
I knew nothing, and for 3 weeks, I honestly felt naked, because word was kind of spilling out. Everyone wanted to talk about it, and I'm like, these things could be 5 feet tall for all I know. I don't know how far they were. I don't know how. There was no due diligence done, which mean that we, Leiterman and myself, we started doing this annual track together to Washington State, and going back where I had my first sighting and spearheaded an expedition there. And we were looking forward to it all year. We had to cancel that and then redirect. Kipp and I were already in contact via private message and kind of becoming friends from online. And so he was supposed to come to Washington. We redirected him, thank God, to come to the Sierras. And it was about 3 weeks later, we were all together. Half of my crew were.
Got a question real quick. I'm going to try to keep up with it, because I don't mean to stop you there, Bart. We got a million things to cover here.
Yeah.
Is this the same area as the alleged Sierra kills? You might be able to elaborate on that.
250 yards and 23 months later.
What's that? Go ahead and say it again. 250
yards, give or take a few, and 23 months later.
Okay, so it's in the same pasture, east side and west side, correct?
Yeah.
Layman's terms? Okay. So yes, that is a yes to Donald.
And,
all right. So let's. I just want to kind of. So we got the layout. We got everybody there. We know the things. The thing that I really want to focus on right now is that you got it home, and now the wheels are turning. Now a lot of people will just post it on the internet and say, "Okay, this is Bigfoot. Deal with it. This is Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot." You didn't do that. You sat on it, right? And you.
Yeah, I was never going to release it. I talked to kind of my circle of researcher friends that I keep in the loop with everything. I wanted their opinions.
I think a couple of them are here tonight, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you put Leiterman right up there. I mean,
so let's do that. Rob, when did he reach out to you?
Yeah, it was right before our trip. We're supposed to go to Washington. And then he says, hey, you're not going to believe this. And of course, when he says that, I'm like, okay, now what? I fucking caught your Bigfoot on film. And I was like, okay. It was he tried to film in bumping. And that wasn't as, I mean, you filmed it, but there's no evidence, so to speak, right?
No, I couldn't film it. We had no recording capability.
Yeah. But you were an observer. And you watched it, and you described it. We kind of did a video, remake it, and kind of acted it out.
Well, so the phone rings, Robert,
So I get
and
this call.
he says, "Go ahead," and he says, "What?"
Oh, he says, "You're not going to believe this." I go, "Okay, here we go. Tell me about it."
Yeah.
He goes, so he sends me this file, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, "Oh, it's blurry." You know, how do you see anything in this thing?
Right.
You know, it's by itself. It's like a. It's not that significant by itself. It's the investigation which makes it significant.
And that's the
I'm looking
important
at this,
thing. Yeah.
And then it goes, hey, instead of going to Washington, let's go to that location and do some research. Are you up for that? You know,
Now, Rob, where do you live?
Oh, I live in Fortuna, which is Humboldt County.
Okay. All right. So, okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, where our Bigfoots aren't as big in the Sierras.
Right. So you're not going to Washington. You pull the plug on the Washington trip, and now you're going up to Point X in the Sierras, right?
Yeah, I'm going up to Sierras now, and I'm like, okay, that's. And so instead of Bart picking me up at my house, which is kind of nice that he does that and feeds me, which I really appreciate, I had to drive all the way down there. So I did. I drive all the way down, and I get to meet the whole crew of people. But prior to that, as soon as you sent me the footage, I watched it, and I had it all figured out. So I did a write-up of, I think it was 9 pages, Bart, of how that's the car engine block of the car. There's the fire ring. That's a flying squirrel, and that sound is just, you know, things fall down in the woods. And yeah, so I had a logical explanation for everything based on not being there. It's like everybody else in the world watches a video and they all become experts at it. And
of course,
they know all the
immediately.
answers to it, but watching it.
Phil makes a living at that.
In-depth experience. And so I did the same thing. And I'm like, are you sure, Bart? I mean, it's so he goes, well, come on down and I want you to investigate it and, you know, tear it apart. I want you to tear it apart. And I go, are you sure? He goes, yeah. So we rescheduled and I went down there to do that. And that's where I met Kipp.
And now, Kipp, we're going to jump into you right now because I think this is where, if you tuned in October 12th, this is where Kipp didn't get to finish the story. So Kipp, you get wrangled in because probably you're the tallest guy in the group, right? We need the 10-time Bigfoot of the year, right? So
yeah,
go.
No, well, so first thing was, I couldn't wait. I get to meet Bart for the first time. I get to go to Washington expedition to be my first one. Mm-hmm. I'm all ready to go. I've got the time off from work, and then I get a call from Bart, and he said, "Hey, plans have changed. We're going up to the Sierras, and this is why." And of course, I'm like, wow, you're kidding. This is exciting. And so I showed up at the meeting point and had never met Bart in person or Robert or anybody. And literally my first experience was I watched Bart go up, give Robert a hug. And the first thing that out of Bart's mouth is, I want you to destroy my evidence. I was like, wow, this is real. So I was impressed already because here's somebody that's just taken this amazing, what is blurry, but amazing piece of evidence and basically put it all out there and said, hey, I want you to destroy it. I want you to find holes if there's something I missed. And so at that point I was like, okay, I'm excited. Let's get up there and let's get to work.
And I think that's that as a juvenile Bigfoot investigator, I would welcome that with open arms. Like, hey, listen, I shot this. I'm not sure what it is, but fucking bust it apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Try to, and not be a hater, but objectively see what I'm missing.
I think that, I think that says a lot when you're looking at something like that. And we all know, I mean, if you go on the internet, there's just tons of, I don't want to call other people's stuff crap, but
crap. I was just going to say crap.
It's just, it's hard. And so to put forth and basically ask a group of people to come together and look at the evidence objectively, I was really looking forward and I was super glad to be there and to be a part of it. So
Okay,
you know,
so before
yeah,
we
let's
get
speak
before we wrangle Phil in, Phil, and I appreciate your patience because you're like you're the godfather of fucking putting this whole thing together here, boss. Let's talk about the reenactments. So you guys got up there, Bart, and I've got some pictures of certain things, so I'll just pop them up and pop them down. But how did the investigation go? How did you set things up? Going, okay, I got these guys together, and I need to figure out what the hell happened.
It was, well, the first thing I want to do, I wanted to have some independence there, even though Leiterman, you know, perceptually we're kind of joined at the hip, you know, researching together for so long. But I felt that would probably behoove him really to dig down and get the truth. And I trust Robert wholeheartedly.
Friendship aside.
Yeah.
Right?
Aside. And so he did, I give him the most credit because he did the most of the dirty work, you know what I mean? Of really, I mean, having his head in there every day. I mean, we probably spent, I would say we're up there 9 days. Last night was just me and him, but for about 7 days, we spent at least probably about 4 to 5 hours a day night. If I might be even underestimating going through and just starting with the different experimentation, you know, trying to pinpoint the distance. That was the biggest thing, you know, because we just had to baseline that initially.
Now, for people that don't know or aren't familiar with season 2, episode 1 of From Behind Tall Trees, Robert, your background, it's not like you're just sitting there, you're an armchair quarterback. You've kind of, you know, a little bit shit about the forest, maybe?
Just a little bit.
Ambition. Give people your background just real quick, just so they go, okay, well, he's not just one of those guys.
Yeah, 30 years of park ranger work. Not all park outdoor stuff, because the parks are like different. You have recreation areas, you have historical parks. But I spent a lot of time out in the outdoors looking for marijuana gardens, patrolling. And after a while, you kind of learn the natural and cultural history of an area, flora and fauna. And you also do a lot of research investigations. So you get to apply that. And like a lot of Bigfoot researching is just, it's an armchair scientist, right? But you are doing some investigative work. And if you've never gone into the woods, or if you've never seen the track in the woods, I mean, you have a lot to learn by trying to figure out what animal left the track behind. But besides that, but just the opportunity to get out and do a bunch of investigations on other Bigfoot related sightings.
Robert, you're also reading.
I don't make a lot of friends on investigations usually because I'm not like the naysayers.
You're the guy at the quinceañera with the pin popping the balloons.
Yeah, that's me.
But you read into people though, right? Your investigative process of being a park ranger, you've talked to people and you read human nature, so you can smell bullshit, right? When somebody's kind of throwing it out there a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, you do. It's a people job. When you doctor public contact, you get to learn personalities, and within 15 minutes, you know a lot about a person. You can learn a lot about a person in 30 seconds to a minute in a conversation, you know, by how they sit or how they behave or how they act or whether they're bullshitting you, but where they look or how they postured their bodies and everything. But yeah, that's all part of it. But this investigation, you know, I got to interview a couple of the people, but it was mostly looking at the evidence at the field and trying to recreate how it happened, looking at the resources that might have been used at the time, like something thrown through the air, a glowing object. Well, what is available? Got to consider that. And
that's the thing.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, certain heights based on distances. Like this case in particular, the topography is kind of unique because you're uphill. Bart's uphill shooting through these gaps, going downhill with a variety of vegetation, trees, and ground cover, but a lot of it's open. You have some snags, which are dead trees, and you have some stumps that have been cut.
Yeah.
So you got these factors looking like just following that red line right down the hill there. And you got to figure out distances. You have to measure distances, look at angles. Nighttime is different than daytime, and other factors retain heat more so than others that do as well. Like that's why Bart was talking about, we're joking about the portal between the trees where things are in the shade are not going to retain the heat during the day. So they're going to look darker. And it really affects, and then it looks like a portal. But anyhow, so you got to figure out what kind of resources were available, and there's how far from that distance between, like Bart mentioned.
How far was that? How far was that in Robert, in your investigation from the Bart Sean mark, and I apologize if I spelt Sean's name wrong and if I got the dot wrong, but how far was that?
That's about I want to say about 105-ish.
That's
feet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 110 or something. That's what I remembered in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay,
People
and
don't
that's
understand.
uphill or downhill?
That's down.
At a grade of what, 3%, 2%?
Ooh, I didn't measure the percent slope, so yeah, just a slight downhill. But
Okay,
the unique thing about that is it goes downhill and then it kind of levels a little bit and then it goes downhill some more.
Mhm.
So when you're looking through that gap that goes between the trees, you can look beyond the campsite and farther away.
And you could almost see the truck if the truck wasn't where it was north, and the truck
Correct.
is off, so you wouldn't see. Yeah.
Right. It was just off to the right. As long as the fire, we couldn't see the heat signature from it. Because it would have retained the heat signature throughout the day, even at that time of night, but it wasn't there.
Well, I think a lot of people. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Who was
I'm
jumping
sorry.
in there?
I know I'm jumping ahead, but
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
when you look through that gap and you watch the footage and you stare at it and you hold your little tallies on one side and you say every time something moves this way through a gap in the trees,
There
you
were
know
two
it's on.
documented.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's totally opposite what I'm doing because that's all the lenses, but it's on the totally opposite side. So you know how many people are on this side and how many people are on this side. When it comes down to it, when you account for everybody, there were 3 to 4 glowing individuals running around the area. But in the far background through the gap in the trees, it goes down and then it goes back up again. It looks like in the footage, but in reality, it's just going farther away. You could judge.
All right. So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals. Correct?
You mean
Bart,
out of the whole group.
yeah, Bart, that you can account for in your group where there were 6.
There was 6. There was
Right.
2 asleep. Yeah.
Now let me ask you a question. Just I have to play devil's advocate because I have to do that. Is the road to the south there? If you're looking at the road there, you would hear a car or a truck coming in there, and the same thing where Micah was, or Micah, whatever his name was. You would. There's no chance of any outside bullshit.
They would have had to hike. They would have had to have been planted there, parked probably, I'd say about over a mile away, and have to tuck in there at night in that gap and do nothing to initiate investigation. Remember, there was never anything that spurred
With
it.
no light.
Random.
Go ahead, Phil. What were you saying?
With no light.
Yeah.
With no light. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you have a waxing moon or waning moon, and I'm doing a documentary upstate New York, and you realize that light travels. It travels fucking forever, and you're in a quiet environment, and you have no light. What's that called? Light garbage, or whatever the fuck it's called. Light.
Ambient light.
No, the light pollution. Light pollution. You know. You have any that when you don't have that around and your eyes are set, you realize everything that's walking and coming into your environment. So yeah. So okay. So you have this done. So the investigation. Okay. So we're gonna move ahead here. Just for I don't want to skip ahead. If I'm skipping ahead too far, let me know. Now you guys do the investigation. I'm gonna bring Phil into the whole thing, and we're gonna talk about the whole investigation all together with Phil, because Phil was kind of the guy that's supposed to be the guy that's really going to shit on the paper plate, right? He's going to be the one to go, you know what? Nice try. Right, Phil?
That was my plan.
Well, I wanted them.
Now we're going to walk through the evidence, Bart. So we're not going to skip ahead too far, but in order to vet yourself and in order to make sure you got the thing. So Phil, Bart, did you personally know Phil before you reached out to him?
Yeah, I did. We didn't know each other very well. I think we had probably talked once or twice, and
Couple
maybe
of comments or something.
yeah. And but I saw enough of his work that I was very impressed, and I looked at him as probably I think he does amazing work, and I looked at him as kind of the ultimate checks and balances.
He does an amazing job of sitting right on that fence, dude. Right on that fence, because if the evidence takes him one way or the other, and if it doesn't, he tells you. All right. So and that's I feel like kudos, man, because I have my 3-minute video that I do based on you, and I tried to do it in 3 minutes. So it's like,
The null hypothesis.
exactly. So you get the call, Phil.
And he wanted to send me this video, told me what happened, said,
Out of the
"This is
blue,
what
though,
I
right? You're like, who the?
called me on the phone. I don't know how he got my phone number. I'm still trying to figure
Exactly.
that out.
Jesus Christ. I didn't give it to him because I don't have it.
So he sends me the video. I said, let me look at it. All right, so I watched all of it and everything. And he had the audio. I heard him going back into camp. I heard Roe going crazy. And then I called him back, and I'll say, and he said,
did call him back. You did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He said, listen, the reason I sent you this, I don't want your yes or no right now, but I want you to be able to tear this apart for me. And I said, okay, I can do that. And so that's how I got involved. And then I spent the next 2 weeks looking at everything and drawing lines and circles.
No. He sent you everything, right? So you, Robert, did you have to send all your files, all your reports? How did you get all the stuff? PDFs or emails or snail mail? I mean, Jesus Christ, dude, it's hard enough to get in touch with somebody.
Yeah. So I did my assignments, and then I sent them all to Bart as part of the research process. I drew a map of the area with all the measurements. And then we drew the portal between the trees and kind of approximately how it looked and locations. It's just like you draw a map and then you blow up sections and try to get that detail in the sections that kind of covers that one area. That was all sent to Bart, and Bart sent it on.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, let me ask you, I'm going to be honest with you, Robert. Did you feel like Phil was stepping on your toes going, fuck, if my investigation isn't good enough, why do they have to bring this guy in?
Well, yeah, you kind of do. It's like you try to do the best you can. I take pride in my work. So
no, I'm not. I'm not making light, but I'm saying I would feel the natural human instinct would be like, what, my investigation wasn't good enough. So yeah. So go ahead. What were you saying, Robert?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You spend a lot of time getting work done, and you're like, okay, Bart, I blew off the dust. I put my sign of approval on it, and Bart, well, this is really good, but I'm still going to send it to somebody else. So you sent it off for a second opinion, and like anything, you're like, oh shit, I have to let some guy tell me how crappy my map is.
So that's how he really feels about you. You're not on his Christmas card list. All right, so let's talk about the evidence. Let's talk about the investigation. Kipp, you're involved. Okay, I have all the footage that we ever need about this. What were the points? What were the first of all? Bart, let's talk about the tent poles of the investigation that stuck out. What were the things that you needed to prove, and how did the group help you? And then how did Phil? We'll get to Phil at the end. So, height, rock throwing. You go. Tell me how did you start? Where did you start?
And I want Leiterman too to probably add some stuff into this. But
yeah, of course, yeah.
We really, I think, started. Yeah, I remember it was like the first or second night. I think we really started in just trying to pinpoint. So, I was standing at the exact. It's not hard, by the way, to see exactly where I was standing because it was just off of the road looking down. So there isn't a lot of places for me to, maneuver even without knowing it. And then we kind of pinpoint how getting Kipp down there. And it was really interesting seeing Kipp in close because the way that this works with thermal, there's usually a threshold distance, and that can vary. There's variables there, right? There's a threshold distance where someone bipedal, whether it be hypothetical.
Wait, you got to slow down for people that are kind of remedial into. Not everybody is a thermal expert,
right? Well, that's what I'm
get it, Kipp.
There's a distance where if you have, say, hypothetically a bipedal subject, right? Mm-hmm. You get north of, say, 100 yards, right? Mm-hmm. Close starts getting harder to discriminate on the individual. Right. You have something like, for instance, my sighting in Washington, 32 yards. That's how close I was. That close, literally. You could see the hair patches on the subject, even with a 160, 100 resolution. But
so 70, that's 70 feet, right? 70 feet. Exactly. And you can, and so you're telling, so if Kipp had a vest or a jacket on, which we'll show here in a minute, that was 110 yards? Was it?
About 105.
That's
yards or feet? I think
Yard.
that's where I was. Okay, I thought it was closer than that.
105 yards.
What was it? I'm sorry.
I was thinking it was 110 feet from where Bart filmed down. I was looking at it as like a length of fire hose.
So that's 110 yards, correct, Phil?
Oh, call it 105. What do you think,
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was 110, but 105. That's close enough.
So 320 feet, plus or minus. And that, so the thermal distance of somebody, now we're not going to get all technical, but the thermal, or I'm sorry, the focal distance of the FLIR that you had kind of starts fuzzing out at what point?
I'd say about you start getting around that 100-yard marker, depending on the variables.
I mean, that's
a lot of moisture in the air that can manipulate that slightly.
Yeah.
But it was really eye-opening to see from that distance, to be able to see Kipp's clothes so clearly.
And I have that. I actually have that, and it's an important thing because I think Phil brought this up, and for people out there, and we have to deal with the fucking ignorance of people that watch Expedition Bigfoot that have the cow walking away and then Bigfoot's like not wearing boots and shit like that. It doesn't work like that in real life, does it? No. No. All right, so I think I have that here. It's just frustrating because a lot of people live in that world of, okay, so I think I have this. Let's see if this is the one.
That's the
So
drop.
What's that, Phil?
Might look like the drop.
Okay, I think I have it here now.
There you go.
That's Kipp.
Yeah.
God, Kipp, you look like Bigfoot.
And I'm
Kipp,
trying
put
to look who modeled on the cooler. Was that you, Robert, at the time that was on the cooler?
Yeah, I'm still staying on the cooler. That's me.
Yeah. So he's marked at 7 feet.
Yeah, but I see it looks like he's got the same shading, or am I missing something?
It's a little different. It's a little different. The other subject is a pure glow.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Kipp's checking his Facebook. All right. The votes for Bigfoot of the year. Kipp, put your phone down.
That's right.
There is a different, it's hard. I don't want to pause it, but you're right. There is a different shading. And yeah.
There's also a better one too that actually really distinguishes it.
I have, this is purely what I pulled off of the reenactment stuff. So
there you go. That's just in the wrong gap. That's us experimenting.
there it is. That's
There it is.
the one.
Yeah.
You can see that it's definitely a lighter shade because of that jacket I'm wearing.
Right. And there's also a big difference between where I'm standing and where Kipp is walking back and forth.
Now, is that you, Robert, on the right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
On the cooler.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he's standing
I was
on the
at a
cooler.
timeout.
Right there.
Yeah.
If I pause it right there, you can clearly see, and this is what we were trying to get to a month ago, is that's a jacket, that's your head, now are you wearing shorts?
No, I was pantless. No, I was wearing pants.
Yeah, you're wearing
Right.
EDU pants.
But I was wearing it was a down jacket. So,
Thongs.
a heavier down jacket, not like this.
Right. I mean, that's night and day right there, right? To here's the thing is people don't want to see this, right? They don't want to know. They want to see the circle with, oh, that's Bigfoot. I believe that's Bigfoot because Bigfoot exists, right? And I tell you what, if you were the different person on a different day that shot the same thing, that'd be up there and you'd be on National Geographic saying you fucking shot a video of Bigfoot. Right?
The tough thing is that, and as I kind of mentioned last time too, people all have their opinions, but until you've walked the ground or you've been on that dirt, it really puts it in perspective. I think that people are quick to judge, and rightfully so. I mean, that's what people do. But again,
That's all they
you've
do.
actually been there, and because again, people always say, "Oh, it was just those guys by the campfire." Well,
Right.
no. If you've been there and you stood where Bart was, where he was filming, and you get the perspective of where things are actually on the ground and on the dirt, so that's where you gain the perspective that we had.
Now, by this time, when they're doing this nighttime reenactment, they knew the actual line of sight, They knew where to stand, where to walk. And at that point, you could talk to any of them and say, where's the camp? And they'll have to point, it's down there. So it's obviously nowhere near the camp.
Now, Bart, that's a good question. I mean, let's be honest, Bart, right?
Yeah.
Were you kind of like afraid to go, you know what, I got some good shit. I don't want to really no ask, don't tell, right? I'm just going to put it out there. So you're human, right?
No, I had no intention of putting it out.
Okay. No, but you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of the best laid plans of like mice and men, dude. It's a lot of people like, you know what? I think it's good enough. I'm just going to put it out.
Yeah, no, I'm under no illusions. And that's why I've always stated that the footage is a C-D. The investigation is A++. The idea of the investigation, what that substantiates it, was to set an example for the field, to up the standard. Someone gets better footage, that benefits us all. And that
Say that again. Set an example for what?
Footage. I want them to hold that higher standard in their methodologies and how they're going to.
Actually, I have something for you right here that I got from somebody I know. We shared factual data and can put our fucking money where our mouth is because we did the work. Total evidence, 4 analyst reports, 17 minutes of paradigm breakdowns, 11 recreation videos, live videos, and audio incidents, offered full transparency. This is a guy that you might want to hang out with, dude, because this guy knows his shit. And here's another one, too. They try to build, these are the people that try to shoot you down, right? They try to build credibility for themselves by knocking others down. I believe that over 90%, it's probably close to 98% of this field is complete bullshit, right? Even though these things you're talking about, Bigfoot is real, many don't vet their opinions. Their opinions are provided with what makes it just as much as cancer as the movie field. So, Bart, you have backed yourself up, and I love those quotes that you sent me during the process of building the show. But fuck it, right? You're like, okay, this is what I have, and it's the investigation, right? I think, gentlemen, we can all talk about the investigation.
Investigation is everything. That's why never put it on. You guys know, best friends or Finding Bigfoot guys did the show a couple times with them. Shatner, I ended up getting off that one because I'm not going to allow them. They wanted the Sierra's footage, but you know what's going to happen. I'm going to lose the editing control. They're going to show blurry blobs walking back and forth.
Oh, did they offer that? Did they offer to buy it for that show? For the proof is out there.
Wanted to use it. They're always looking for material at that time, especially at that time after the show, a few years in. You know what I mean? So it was when we focused on some of the other things that we've experienced, including being what Robert have experienced together. That we focused on, but they were never going to have. The footage isn't good enough to stand on, so it has to have the investigation.
Let's talk. Oh, go ahead. You had a butt there.
At the end of the day, are we all in agreement here? Those are bipeds.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's a deer. Just
kidding.
I wasn't paying attention for the first 48 minutes. No, what? No, of course.
If they're bipeds.
Phil, what do you think, Phil?
I think that you think they're deer.
No, I'm kidding. I was just fucking joking, dude. Honestly, you were brought in to be the heavy. We're all on accounts that right. These are whatever they are. They're people walking or bipeds.
Okay, well, you have to look at what happened after the original filming of it. Well, first of all, you have to look at the thermal image itself. Is it all one shade? Is it all one color? How is it moving? How are the people recording it acting? How did they get there? What happened before they filmed it? What happened after they filmed it? He went into the investigation, which was a huge positive in my mind for these guys because, you never see that in 99% of the people. They'll show you a piece of video, and it's obvious that they're not going to do anything with it other than just put it up there, and you have to determine whether or not it's a hoax, whether or not they're seeing something that just isn't there, or they're delusional. Okay.
And you're getting nothing. You're getting stuff from these guys that you never get from any other video you break down, right?
Right, exactly. The only other case that was similar to this would be the Grays Harbor video.
Good friend of mine, Jonathan. Yeah.
So the way they were going about this, the size comparison, I can't remember who did the the dissolve from the daytime to the nighttime scene. Was that me or was that someone else? I thought I'd done that, but you could see the area very clearly when you dissolve from one and another between the height of Kipp and the actual figure. And it's okay. Well, was there somebody out there in the woods naked standing on a box? The probability of that are pretty nil. And it's just little things like that just add up. They all add up. And of course, then Bart goes back in there. He takes us into the scene and he shows us where the camp is, shows us these logs that were stood up so they could do the drop thing.
Right here.
I mean, he just covered every aspect of this. Even the video that anybody can have a question about, he covered it.
And that's, I mean, as an investigator, right, Phil, you're the investigator. You got to love to have the transparency.
Well, that's one thing. I mean, it's an openness. Yeah. Here's all the evidence. Look at the evidence. If you see a problem, let us know. We'll try our best to answer what happened or whatever. And they just went through and they just pieced it all together the way that every investigation should go. From from soup to nuts. So I was pretty excited. I mean, halfway through, I was pretty excited what was going on.
Now let's talk about some of the stuff that people might not have seen in the videos. We're talking about the rock drops, right? There was some stuff, Bart, you want to talk about that might have been missed to in layman's. If you just watch it, I have a couple of those clips, so if you want to talk about it, and then we'll bring them up.
Real quick, I just want to say the reason when I say bipeds, now I'm not saying no, I just want to get this point across. I'm not saying Bigfoots. What I'm saying is they're bipeds. They're on two legs. We're down to humans, which would be the default, right? That we would, but we got to remember now when you do the due diligence, well, what a coincidence, they're all on the highest end of the human height scale, right? 7,100 feet, waxing moon night, and somehow got in there, like it's Phil was saying. So it's breaking down from there. Now I lean a little bit more towards the Bigfoot way because from my personal perspective, I've seen them. so to me, not to anyone else externally, I don't expect that, but to me, it defaults to that once you get past people. But the first thing you got to rule out, when you look to rule out, is the obvious, and that's human being bipeds. That's where I was going with that.
And Bart's always been a real big one with Occam's razor. He's always looking for the most obvious explanation for things, and that's a great example right there. He's not saying they're Bigfoot, but it's what else could it be other than some extremely tall naked people that somehow walked in the middle of the night and stood outside a camp full of people who they do not know whether or not they're armed or not. But if Justin's there, they're armed. So there you have it.
And did nothing to initiate investigation. That was the other thing. It's not like we heard something and we went to go investigate it or whatever.
Well, and no one knew you were there, right? You didn't broadcast it on a Facebook page or whatever. It's
right.
like
it's one thing if you knew the actual height, or you didn't know the actual height. You don't know how thermal works. You're not sure how it's moving. And then when you bring all of these to score, then it leads to all these questions. Well, how come this person supposedly is over 6 foot tall? How come this person can find his way through there at night in the dark without a lamp? How can this person go into this area, and why are they running around naked? All of these questions have to be answered then. And they can't easily be answered at all. So there you go. It kind of leaves you to.
And that's from Phil. Phil doesn't hand these things out, right? You don't get a golden ticket from Poland just to fucking show up, right? You gotta actually dot the I's and cross the T's.
Well, it depends if I'm getting paid or not, you see.
No, but okay. So speaking of other things, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, there's a lot of things that people didn't, and we want to cover this. And I'm glad everybody's hanging in there because we have a lot of people hanging in there. There's a lot of things that got missed, and if you weren't paying attention to the whole film, there's some stuff, right? There's some rock drops and there's some other items, right? So Bart, talk us through this. I'm going to play this video. and you can talk us through this. I think there might be some audio on it, but you can talk us.
There were 2 documented actions in this event.
Actually, why don't you set it up and I'll play Phil's segment of the documentary because it's got audio on it.
Yeah, the rock drop and the rock throw, that happened. That was in the last tier going back up there with the batteries with Sean, and then oh shit, we got him again, right? And then we see and hear that they were like a couple seconds apart. And I remember too, I'll never forget this when it happened, right? The rock drop, I don't even know if I saw that really well in person, but I definitely saw the rock throw. It was like a flash of light. And I remember telling Sean, I said, one of them just did something. And I couldn't get a word out like to what they did because it did. It looked like in person, I mean, through the therm, looking at it, it looked like a flash of light, much clearer than you see, of course, on the onboarding in the video, real time. And what was interesting about that, and Leiterman really set up, you know, all the experiments on it. I give him credit for that, where we actually, you saw the 2 logs that were put on top of each other. We were trying to get the height and depth of that rock, what looked like a rock drop. And we were doing different, you know, different objects. I mean, we even found freaking empty beer can, you know, crushed beer can in the woods.
There's no problem for those when Kipp's around.
I mean, we tried everything to try to mimic it, and we ended up what we did. We ended up slightly heating up the rock, just getting warm, you know. And because you got to remember, you wouldn't be able to see them unless there was a heat element associated.
Right.
With the rocks,
Yeah,
right?
if you remember, Bart, we actually tried to figure out like how could they get something like that warm. We tucked them under our armpits, the rocks. Right. We tried to get them hot that way. Eventually, I think we just heated them up near the fire long enough to try and get them
for
able to
kind of
show some heat.
Yeah, to see it.
Yeah.
You can at least see them on the film. And it was very interesting.
Strange that there wouldn't be. I mean, Phil, what do you think? Wouldn't you think if you grabbed a rock, it would be hot enough to show up on thermal?
Well, you have to understand that they were doing this thermal recreation during the day. So during the day, you have the heat of the day, which would affect it. At nighttime, it would seem warmer because of the cold air around it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And it was interesting, you know, because you see this what looks like a rock drop, and then I had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, Bart, that's just the laser beam throw. Oh, that's just a night bird or whatever it is."
Laser beam,
fucking ricochet that you see, and then oh yeah, you're right. And
all right, so let me roll it here. I got the Phil Poland, the part ripped off of his.
There were 2 documented actions in this event. Was what looked to be a rock drop. This shows a small thermal hotspot to the far right and high up off the ground, from which we see what looks like a warm object being dropped. Here is the reenactment of the drop performed by Kipp MORRILL. An attempt was made to show the rock passing down inside an open view between branches as the original was. At first glance, this would seem to be a simple task, but apparently this wasn't as easy as first thought.
It wasn't, right, Bart and Kipp? I mean, you guys had to go through all this shit to get this to even come close, and it didn't even. I don't even think it came really close.
Yeah, I don't think we completely nailed it. I think we got as close as we were going to be able to get. You know, the subsequent rock throw was interesting because, you know, it's like a laser beam, and Kipp actually was one trying to duplicate that. And I kind of remember, I think that part we did film at night, so he threw his headlamp on, you know, to be able to see. And, you know, Kipp throws pretty hard, but I'm saying it was a natural, there's like a human, just like a pitcher in baseball, there's like a natural human arc to where it kind of loses elevation and drops and then hits. This was like a just a bam, like a laser beam throw.
All right, so I have the original. I have the original without any. I'll just play it, and then I sped it down 70% to just show the stuff. So I think you can talk over.
The other event, what is believed to be a warm rock, is seen passing over the stationary subject from left to right. This is presumed to be the possible rock hitting tree sound reported by Rowe and Todd. Here is the reenactment of the event.
Talk over this one.
Yeah, so you see that's Kipp, that's the rock.
Right, drop.
But on the throw, those were Kipp's attempts of just trying to even hit the tree. Even hit the tree that it bounced off of was an issue. From where that rock was coming from. You don't see the subject throw the rock, but you get
what's your pattern? It's like straight.
Yeah, and it whizzes past the subject that you're seeing stationary there. That the subject's probably halfway to the tree from where that rock comes from, and then bounces off.
So if that whatever it was that was throwing the rock meant to throw the rock and hit the tree, then that's pretty decent accuracy. Obviously, it took me a couple of times, and I'm no big league pitcher or anything like that, but it took several times in order to try and hit something. Whatever it was, if it was actually trying to hit the tree, it was accurate on the first shot. So,
Phil, your opinion on those? I mean,
that's how they got.
What was that?
There's no collusion. There was no collusion involved. I mispronounced Kipp's last name, so just to show you that actually at the time. So
I thought I mispronounced his last name.
What passing by quickly. It was you can see how quickly it went. I mean, it was like captured it. You hear it's like here and then it's here. So it was quick, it was accurate, and it was this reason that kind of in my mind thinking, well, how do Bigfoots hunt for small game? Very well, how they do it. I just went through my brain like, look, there's a squirrel, that's a munchie, let's grab a rock. That's how my mind works sometimes. But yeah, that's I thought it was pretty impressive. The original was very impressive. Just the speed that it was traveling.
Yeah, let me play it again. It's got Phil's monologue over it there. But here.
The other event, what is believed to be a warm rock, is seen passing over the stationary subject from left to right. This is presumed to be the possible rock-hitting tree sound reported by Roe and Todd. Here is the reenactment of the event.
It's there. It's just you can see across that tree, and it's just floor. Yeah. So how high, Robert? When you did the investigate, how high up was that?
I think it's like 9 feet up.
Jesus Christ.
So here's the interesting thing is when we were trying to duplicate that at night, we basically, we tried to set it up approximately where it was in the gap, and Bart didn't see us at all. And that took us, a couple hours, Bart, to finally find that portal. And we couldn't figure out, I go, how in the world can he not see us? It makes no sense. So finally we got the idea, well, maybe Kipp's not tall enough. So we started looking for things to raise up Kipp's height. We tried the ice chest. Well, that wasn't high enough. So we started looking for things. So I dug around that area and found these guys, rolled them over there, and we tried the first one. Even as tall as Kipp is at 6'3", it wasn't cutting it. And then so we stacked the second one on. And mind you, we're filming this at night. So Bart, Kipp is standing on this thing with, barely fitting on top of it in the dark, hanging on, trying to drop a glowing object of something that we had to figure out what would be seen from that distance. So you grab that. We grabbed the white pine cones. We grabbed crushed cans, bottles.
You couldn't get the thermal signature.
Yeah, it's got to be something large enough to be seen and able to absorb the heat. So when you think about it, how long does one have to hold on to an object before it's going to retain enough heat to be seen from that far away? So that's other things to think about.
That's true, because you're talking 100 yards plus away, and it's not like you're at a campfire and look at me with the thermal. Yeah,
you're maxing out the piece of equipment right there.
Right. And
so finally, it's like Bart's reaching, Kipp's reaching up, and he does that drop, and I got to hear the words I wanted to hear. I see it. It's like about freaking time. And so,
well, you were about to give up, right, Bart?
I think we were getting close with that. We're just like, fuck. I mean, this is just going on for hours. And
Kipp was running out of beer cans. I can't drop them anymore. I'm running out.
So what's kind of happening is we had some helpers. What's his name's kid was helping us out. So every time we would utilize that glowing object and we'd run them back over to heat it up again. So we're running back and forth, and we had to find objects in the area that were big enough, and everything we used, it was there. Yeah. So we tried to use things that were there that would fit. And the only thing that matches any of that stuff was rocks.
Now, was it a river rock, like a like a smooth river rock, or?
Well, they weren't really smooth, but they didn't have a lot of edges on them either. But there were some rocks there.
Yeah.
And we're looking for the right size of it. And from what if you would have asked me what type of object would I think it was, I'd have to say it was a rock, because out of all the things we tried to recreate, that reacted the best to it. And it's kind of weird because right before that is Bart went out fishing, waiting to get back. And when he got back, we were doing an experiment of, we had one of the volunteers put rocks under his armpits. He had to keep him there for 3 hours because Bart was 3 hours late.
Interns.
But anything for science, right? So when Bart finally shows up, we use those rocks to toss. They were smaller, harder to see, but we used a closer distance. And that's when he could see them. And then later on, we went over and started tossing rocks in the woods in the dark in the same area to bounce them off the tree where Kipp was working on his pitching arm. But the drop, but that was something else too, because when that sound of the rock falling and hitting a decaying log had a hollow thud sound. And the guys at the campsites around the same time that took place said they heard something of a drop. Bart, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think that was all that they recall hearing.
Yeah.
During the whole time, because you got to remember, they didn't know before Sean and I went down there. We've been up there maybe 50 minutes or more, or probably longer. And
it was a while, right?
Idea. Like we were up, they thought we did what we originally were intended to do, which was walk a mile or whatever, come back in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And yeah, it makes you think, it's interesting. If, let's just say hypothetically, okay, they're Bigfoots, whatever, right? It does make you think, though, as Phil said, like from a hunting perspective, I would expect them to work in tandem, use subterfuge, that type of stuff. And I think rocks fit right in there. And you think, well, Jesus, that was the one. What was the one variable that was different that night? It was the muley deer factor. How many?
What? Say that again.
The Nevada muley deers, the herds that were there was unprecedented.
So they were moving through.
Yeah, they were there all night. I mean, it was not.
Oh, you said that at the beginning. Yeah.
Earlier in the night, there was probably 100 to 130 deer, within a 2 mile radius or so. It was ridiculous. I remember even Sean picking me in row up, and I remember looking up with my therm as we're going up the logging road, and I'm looking up and I'm seeing deer. There's 2 more deer. I mean, there was that many initially.
Because there's a pasture up here to the north, right? Roughly to the north. If you look at the.
There is, but you don't see them like that. You don't see them.
Yeah.
It's one here, one there. You don't see them.
No, but I'm saying the pasture is up there. The pasture exists.
Yeah.
I'd like to add a little bit on the California mule deer. That's a major migration route, and about August, late rut starts around there, and they're moving from the Sierras down more towards lower Sierras on the Nevada side, and that's a migration route for the California mule deer. And it's not unusual for them to group up there, it's kind of interesting. We always talk about food sources. There's a seasonal food source where they all congregate and all the separate herds get together, migration route to different location. And so the numbers are up. And I was doing a little bit of research on the book that Bart and I am working on, tried to tell about the whole story, and did a little research on the California mule deer, the migration routes. And that's a noted one. And the in that part of the Sierras is a small season because snows come early there, and they stay. Just ask the guys on the Donner Party; they'll tell you all about it. And so,
well, that's 7,000 plus feet, right?
7,100.
Yeah, it's over 7,000 there.
And noticeably, when we went there to do the recreation, there were hardly any deer that I recall.
Yeah, we went up at a different time. Yeah.
Well, that was the question, Phil. When you got the footage, were you curious about the month it happened and the recreation date as far as things not lining up? Were there any red flags? And be honest, because the guys are all here and it's all done.
No.
Not one single?
No, not at all.
Really?
I got it not too long after it was filmed. And Bart had told me some of the steps that he was taking to add some kind of finality to this thing. And that's why he contacted me. And I said, well, this falls right in line. So I didn't really think anything of it at that time, except why me,
Well, to Bart and the company, no offense, Bart, but this is a big fucking thing for Bart. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, what me? So it's not as important at the time to you, Phil, as it is to Bart. But you saw no red flags, which is amazing, which is great. I mean, I applaud that. There's a question here. Ask Bart about the deer next to Michael's truck.
Oh yeah,
SoCal Swatch. I'm not sure who that is, but
earlier in the evening, there was 3 deer came right into camp over kind of by Michael's truck. Kind of uncharacteristic, it makes you wonder. I mean, is that because there's a predator around or what? But it's typically you don't see them be that comfortable and casual strolling right in. We don't have that. I'm out a lot, and
right.
Robert's out a lot. You don't see that, unless there's something significant kind of going on. So that was interesting. Very interesting.
Hey, Bart, there was a time, not around this time, but there was a time I believe that you were up in that same area doing a little hike up one of the roads, and you were getting some rocks thrown at you.
We had, we had a lot of, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, Justin Spay and I had a rock thrown back at us at 2 a.m. about a mile away. We didn't have a lot of.
Was this the same day or
no? This was about a year later.
Oh, okay.
And we would have other things. We had deer carcass that got pulled, was missing. I mean, there was even one of my guys got some thermal footage, but instead of the black and white, he used where it highlights in the red. And I can't stand that because there was just no way to make out what it was. We would have had a chance maybe in the white. And that was directly across where Michael Lorenz's truck was the night of the footage. So it was on that side of the tree line that happened. So we had a lot of stuff kind of happen throughout the years. And we also had a lot of trips that were just empty. I mean, nothing happened at all. Totally. But Justin and I I tend to be a little aggressive when I'm out there. I'm not there to make friends. I'm talking about with what we chase, what we pursue, and I'm not there to play woods and wild men. And so I get aggressive sometimes, and I'll do rock throwing. It's almost the opposite of hunting. I've learned is like you're trying to draw attention, and then we've got thermal to counter their nocturnal tendencies. That's how I think, right? And try to be different. Where this hunting, you're trying to, descent and be sneaky, and it's almost the opposite. And you're trying to piss them off to draw them in. So we'll tend to do that. Bobo and I would do that a lot. We do a lot of rock rolling, that type of stuff to get attention. So anyways, I had been doing that. And yeah, sure enough, Justin and I got a rock thrown at us at about 2 a.m. And we also had an interesting episode with coyotes with this caller getting surrounded later in the night. And as soon as they thought it was an alien pack. As soon as they saw us, they didn't care. They were gone, But yeah, so there were some scattered little incidences here and there throughout the years. And yeah.
Do you still investigate that spot? Is that because I've been speaking to a mutual friend, I could say, Riolo, right? Richter.
Yeah.
Do you still protect that site as far as this is your investigative site? I'm not saying protect it with barbed wire fence, but
I've kind of had to relinquish it a little bit over the years. I think one of the mistakes, it was kind of a double-edged sword, catch-22, was the more we released and the more transparent we were, well, that actually brought in more people who can figure out exactly where it was. And it just got to a point of frustration where
it's contaminated all the fucking time.
Right. And you just got different people. We pull up and there's been, and one of the guys ended up being,
hey, I saw you on YouTube.
He ended up joining us. He ended up being a great guy and he ended up joining us. But other than that, to me, it's a pain in the ass, a big distraction. And I just kind of over time, now they've done a lot more clear cutting effort in the last couple of years there. And so there's been some significant change there. Used to be, it's a selective cutting area, but I guess they cut the shit out of it, especially more towards the highway. And it's a little different. So I've gone back I think I was back there with Kipp. Me and him did a quickie alone. We went up there for a couple nights.
Yeah, it would have been October 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Kipp, tell us about that. What was going on up there?
It was cold. I remember that. But it was just Bart and I going up for a couple of nights. And Yeah, the thing is that whole site with that meadow, because there'd been so many trips back in there so often, it was kind of deteriorating the whole area. Just lots of just too many people, too much going on. So it'd be interesting to go back up there now and see. There's still people that have figured out where it's at. It's not like Bart's trying to hide it, but people have found out and figured out where it's at, and they try and go in there and look. But I don't think that it garners the same attention that it did, say, the first couple of years after the thermal sighting.
Now you gave me some Sierra audio, Kipp. Is that from you get for last show?
Yeah, you're talking about the audio that I got from CARC with CARC.
Yeah, is that related to this property?
No.
Okay.
CARC and I were up in Washington together when that occurred.
Okay.
Although I will say it was interesting. We were at the site once, and it was no campfires because it was a fire restrictions were in place, and I'm thinking, gosh, if I'm not mistaken, the moon was pretty bright that night, but we were right by where Roe and Todd and those folks were. And it was interesting because right up behind us, clear as can be, a sharp wood knock. And that was the first time I'd ever heard one in the wild. And I looked at Kirk and I said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah." It's interesting because we went back up there the next day. I couldn't duplicate it. I couldn't find where it was at, but it was as clear as it wasn't a branch falling. It wasn't a tree falling. It sounded as if wood on wood. So I remember that.
But that was in Washington State, right?
No, that was at this thermal site.
The same site. Right.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to laugh at you. Go, well, it didn't happen there, so we can't talk about it.
There's other places trying to keep secrets. So.
And I think the important thing to take away, and a lot of people poo-poo, fuck him. It was fucking it's this, and I'm looking at the banners and the brands and stuff, and then the comments. It's like, you have to get past because I think I've heard Bart say this more than once in the last 3 weeks that we've been advancing the show is the thermal footage, and Phil, you can attend to this. It's not the story. The investigation backs up what is on the thermal. Correct, Phil?
Right on.
And at the end of the day, people are just, I think people in the community are programmed to be skeptical.
You got to hang on a second there. Reset, because you're in a matrix there.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Okay. Start again.
So people in the Bigfoot community are, and I hate to use that term, but I'll use it, are programmed to be skeptical and not believe anything because there is so much crap out there. But the bottom line is there's going to be plenty of people that just aren't going to believe it, no matter how good the investigation, no matter how good the footage. It's just the way it is. But selfishly, and me speaking for myself, I was there. I helped with the investigation. I saw the footage, and I'm convinced that there were 2 to 3, almost 4 bipedal subjects in camp, and they were all much taller than all the people in there, and they weren't wearing any clothes.
Rob Leiterman, your summary of the whole thing.
Well, I'd like to expand on 2 things.
Yeah, go ahead. Take your time.
One of it is every time you share an experience at a location, it gets exploited. So serious researchers are hesitant to share that information outside the bubble because people tend to trash places. I worked for parks for over 30 years, and Sunset Magazine would always go, "Hey, so where are the nice places?" "Oh, there are none here." Because you give away your trade secrets, your nice place, and they trash it, and it's not nice anymore. And like a lot of shows like Finding Bigfoot, encouraged to hammer on trees and scream and yell in the woods, and that kind of brings a different feeling to your experience. And the other thing is I don't want to sound wishy-washy or superstitious, but the killing wasn't too far away, and less than a quarter mile away, the alleged killing. Mm-hmm. And that was what, Bart, about two years?
October.
to-
Yeah, about 22 months, call it roughly.
Yeah.
Later.
So it's pretty close. So it's a pretty close window. So that night we didn't talk about it this evening in our discussions, but Shmeiha was sleeping on a cot.
Right.
At that location.
Well, we
His
didn't talk
smell
about
is-
it for a particular reason because it doesn't have anything to do with this conversation. So
It offers weapon for us. That's one thing you woke up for.
yeah.
So-
Yeah. So go ahead, Rob.
I'll just go ahead and finish. It's so allegedly this person is there at the site, and whether or not the killing took place or not is irrelevant to the whole contact that we just talked about.
Right.
But something was moving around that site, agitated. One of them was stationary. The others were agitated, moving around, and they were seen through that opening in the trees. One of them in particular circumnavigated that whole campsite and back again, which lists those 4 individuals. Bart had cameras on his vehicle, and his vehicle is the far back to the left. And Bart, how many yards you say your vehicle was to the campfire?
We would go, let's see, if we're 105 there, I'd say roughly call it 50 to 60 southwest side tree line was completely covered.
All right. So your vehicle was where compared to Micah's?
See where the J is in Justin on that map?
Yep.
That's about where the vehicles were.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit hugging the tree line a little.
Okay.
So the point I was getting at is Bart had 2 reconnaissance cameras placed on his vehicle, aiming into the forest. Anything that walked around the outside perimeter on the edge of the forest would have been captured on the reconnaissance. So we know, I'm watching the footage, and you see something cross between the trees, and it's at a distance, and it's actually higher up than the big figure that was going back and forth, because it's farther away, and it's farther down the hillside. Therefore, it is farther up in elevation. So, guesstimating how far away, we can guesstimate how far it is by the feet area and figure out, what the bipedal portion of that silhouette is to guess the distance. Whatever it was, it walked around that campsite where everybody else was, in between Bart's vehicle and the fire ring.
Yep.
And that's something that we don't talk much about. But anyhow, so the behavior was agitated and the smell is everywhere. So one of the things you kind of speculate from time to time is if the killing actually took place or the shooting took place and there's a scent there and there's the same guy that did that is in camp, then you have these heat signatures agitated and movements moving around this area, except one is stationary and watching, looks like Bart and Rope and Sean the whole freaking time. It's stationary with its job, watching the people who are looking down, and it doesn't change that position. It's there. Bart, was it 2 or 3 times you came back up and it was still there?
It was one, but it was still there. Yeah.
It's holding its ground, but the others are moving around agitated. One throws a rock, and one drops a rock. The interesting thing is, now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did the rock drop take place first before the lateral rock was tossed?
No, the rock stuff was the last tier of stuff I was able to capture, and then
So the drop was first, the throw was second.
Oh, in that order, yes. I thought he meant from when they were going through the gaps. No, the rock drop was first, the throw was second, and they were.
Do you remember how much time between the drop and the toss? If I remember rightly, it wasn't long.
3 seconds.
Phil,
Yeah.
you researched that, I'm sure.
Which part? The
Between the drop and the throw. Ballpark.
Oh, gee. I don't even remember.
It was seconds. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I can't say it was instantaneous, but
2-3 seconds.
I'd say
reactionary. Do you think it was reactionary?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if we speculate on that, the sound was made unnecessarily, and one reacted by throwing something else. Hey, knock that shit off.
Mhm.
So we can speculate.
That's actually a good point. I never thought about that. I never thought
you know,
about that. Hey, fucking shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't they throw the rock at the violators, right? The trespassers. And my thing, my question to all of you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The rock was tossed in the same direction where the rock drop was. So, well, what do you expect from a fiction writer anyway? You know.
My question, I'm sure a lot of people have it out there, is why would 3 creatures allow them to almost be surrounded unless they found you not a threat?
Because they weren't pinched, as like was mentioned. That's
I'm sorry, say that again, Bart.
they weren't quote unquote pinched into a tight area. There's a 100-yard window for me.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because you see the video, you think you're right on top of each other, but yeah, you're right.
One of those things you look at it, and you go, Jesus, why don't you just flip the headlamp on and render? There's more practical things that would work, but no, you weren't gonna like flush them in. You were gonna flush them out, and it's over. There's no.
One of my first questions was, why didn't you just fucking charge them, dude? Fucking go.
You think that footage is bad?
It's easier said than done, right, Phil?
Yeah, well, if you look at the distance between them, and you look at all the branches and everything that was over the path and around the path and the brush, he never would have made it without making a racket.
I would have made it like as far as that, maybe the first tree there, maybe the first branch of the first tree, dude, and then I would have had to take a break.
Well, does anybody remember that episode of Finding Bigfoot when Matt Moneymaker tried to make that run and that charge, and they were all upset with him?
They're up the hill.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think one thing to remember, I'm probably just speaking to the obvious, but the thermal, I don't think that they knew that they were being filmed, or they knew that they were being observed. That's the key too, is that they had no idea that they were even they were being observed. They thought they were hidden.
That's a great point, and it's just my personal perspective. So I'm just giving you from my experience. My experience in Washington taught me a lot. And one thing I really felt, and I don't know this, but I really felt based on the circumstances, was that the thermal picks up IR. It doesn't give off IR like night vision, right? So technically, I shouldn't be able to see it, and that's exactly how it behaved. It behaved unnerved because of the closing distance I had on it, but not. I never felt like it could see me. So if you were to ask me, hey, do you think these things see good at night? I would say, you know what? Probably not as good as everybody thinks. I think their other attributes compensate for that. Would be my guess, and that's just me going by personal perspective. I don't know
Speculation, yeah.
Speculation, but just based on what I saw. I mean, even in Washington, there was one point. It took me years to figure out what the fuck. Why did it do that? Put its hand above its face like this, which again, I'm not giving off IR. It's picking it up with a thermal. Well, it took years later walking through with Brandenburg's brother, and we figured it out. From that, look, it was blocking the ambient light to be able to discern me in that direction. And that ambient light that's coming off the lanterns at camp, it's a perfect angle. It makes complete sense, and that's why it did it. So I really don't think that's a great point, Kipp. I really don't think that they, if anything, maybe wondering why are they stopped up there or whatever, if they even, but not filming them. I don't believe it. I don't believe it's hard. I just don't.
Well, Robert, I mean, we were just finishing up with you. Is like your takeaway from this, Robert, is have you gained any more of a perspective on what this creature is in your investigation? Because you spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the fuck was going on there. So
yeah, because as Bart would vouch for it, I'm pretty skeptical on the subject matter, and so I scrutinize when other people share their experiences with me. I just did the breakdown. It's just, well, let's look at the facts, and sometimes people don't like to hear that. So Bart's always trying to hound me all the time. He wants me to commit. As a matter of fact, it doesn't fail. So I think while we were doing the filming of this, so he threw that ball at me again. Do you believe, Robert? Do you believe after everything here, after what I say, our friendship? You believe?
Come on.
After our tree destruction video, that was pretty good.
Yeah, which I called the tree failure video. So we're still
selling the Amway, dude. Jesus.
Yeah. So to answer your question is, I had conceived ideas of what took place. I'm a human being. I think I know everything. I come up with my solution, and the whole point is to disprove it. So you have to take your biases aside and just to the evidence and try to prove it based on what you have available to you. So after those 7 hard days, long days of investigation, I've come to the conclusion that there were multiple individuals around the campsite, that they were tall, they were wide, and that some were agitated, some were not. And it had to be, as Kipp summarized it, naked individuals with good girth, moving around an area that was dried enough to be very noisy. and would have been heard at night with sounds travel quite a bit. And there was something walking around out there that was behaving differently. And it's not like they all behaved the same way. Some were stationary, some moving around. It's like we have different jobs to do. You're supposed to use the guard. You watch. We're moving around trying to get a closer look at what's going on here. It's here. I smell something. There's something. I know there's something here. And they're getting closer and closer. And when I first saw it, I thought, yeah, of course, like a lot of other individuals, it's like, oh, well, you know, Ro is afraid of the dark, you know, Todd, they're afraid of the dark. They're not going to go out.
Sean was scared shitless, wasn't he? He was like, I'm so glad I'm behind you.
Yeah, he openly admitted that when we were at Best.
There's nothing wrong with that, dude. It's like fucking, so what?
Hey, it's only been a couple of years where I'm finally, I don't make Bart hold my hand. So
You still have, I see the nightlight behind you. You're going to turn that off.
Yeah, I just
Well,
wanted
that's the thing. I mean, go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that the firewood was near the campsite. The tree line was 70 feet away. And there's no way in the world it was those individuals looking for firewood. I'm sorry, it was more than 70 feet. But I don't remember the exact distance.
35 yards
in front of me. I'm sorry, how much?
35 on the nose.
So that's 100
Okay.
feet. Yeah.
So we're looking at where the campfire was to the tree with the gap in it was a long ways away. And they weren't going to go that far to get firewood when there's a pile of firewood within about 10 yards away that was off scene, which you would have seen through that
Right.
location.
No. Let me stop you real there for a second.
Going out beyond that. Sorry.
Is Phil? Did you talk to everybody individually? Have candid conversations, or did you just get the reports from Robert?
I got all the information from Bart directly.
And you got it from Robert. Oh, so Robert, go ahead. I just wanted to see how it went. So Robert ran the majority of the investigation. So the firewood is here. The campfire is there. Robert, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah. The firewood, you can't see anybody moving around to collect firewood or at the camp based on the position through that gap in the trees. And the guys, when they said, I didn't go out away from that fire to go collect firewood, I believe them, because both those players late at night were a little skittish of the dark, because you can't blame them either for that. And Bart, you know, he's like a weird dude. He goes, I'll just go walk in the woods and sit there for hours with my little therm. I'll be just fine, you know. And so he's more comfortable with that type of activity. But
well, that's why he's there, right?
Their responses were sincere. The
Right.
fear when they talked about it, the talking about the noises and what's running through their heads. They talked about seeing moving shadows around, looking up towards the hilltop. And there's a ridge back there. If you flash back to the map again, there's a ridge behind that where Bart is. Right behind Bart is the ridge line, and it kind of goes flat there. So the backlighting off to the right of that photograph is the starlight on that ridge, which silhouettes anything up there that you could see if you're looking closely to it. So they saw some silhouette movements, and they heard the thud of a rock hitting. So they heard portion of that, but they didn't directly see anything, but they saw shadows moving. But at night, we all see shadows moving. Right. So you always say, well, it's just my imagination. But when it all came together, when Bart comes back and tells the story, you're not going to believe this. And they have footage, but he can't really check it out very well. But he's documenting it. And then it all starts coming together. Like, it's not just one thing. It's all these things that kind of fit together. Like going back to the tree destruction video that Bart and I, we put together. It was the fact that we went up there right before sunset, and we set up, and we were pretty quiet. And then we started doing some investigative techniques, like a call or a knock, and count the time period between them. So when we first did that, we did a knock or something. We waited, I want to say 7 minutes, and then we got a response. No, so every 7 minutes we did something. So after 7 minutes of waiting, we did something. Within 3 minutes, we got a reaction. We waited 7 minutes. We did something. Within 3 minutes, a tree gets pushed over or falls down. Now, is that circumstantial, or because the pattern that we created ended up with those results?
Right. So
you're going back to that fire ring area over at the kill site, aka kill site area, and things are happening, but people aren't putting two and two together because it's a typical day out in the dark woods, right? But when you take all these things that took place and you bring them all together, and you got something unusual going on, and when you do the investigation, it kind of confirms a lot of the stuff that took place, because if you can recreate it close enough, and you'll know height, distances, and everything else, you kind of get a picture of kind of what's going on. None of the stuff we did can be perfect because we don't know exactly how tall anything was, but we know the general locations and we know Bart's location. Like if this were the film site and that was frame 352 and exact distance away to the location of the creature and the height of the creature, we would know, a lot. I mean, the speed of the film, we would know the height of the creature. So here's something similar to that, where we kind of know where it was, so to speak, by matching it up, and we kind of know the size because we used a person of known size passing back and forth through a gap during the day, and we did it again at night to match the glowing figure. Mm-hmm. I really wish that Bart's therm was working better, because when we did the recreation one night, everything was clear.
It sucks.
I know. Yeah, a letter for it. I hope you framed it, Bart.
So here's a favorite misconception. I think it'd be great to try and address here. And I'm not going to say who, but there's somebody out there that likes to say Justin had a group of his friends come out there to show up and basically, group.
That's funny. Go ahead, because I was going to just lead up with that. So yeah, go ahead, follow up.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting one, and I guess if it has some, 6 and 7 foot naked people that came out there, but that's again one of those people from the outside throwing rocks. There's the ones that say, oh, it was just the guys by the campfire. Everybody knows that. Then there's that's hanging out there. There's individual or people that say, oh, that was Justin had some of his friends come up there, and I think that, well, that's
I've been reaching out, not to cut you off, Kipp, but I've been reaching out to other people, and I've had a bunch of those texts come in, and it's Riolo, right? We all know it's Riolo, and not just him, but and Shelby others, and stuff like that. So, but go ahead, Kipp. There's no verification of that by any means. I think there's just literally, and Bart, I'm going to give you the last word on this, so just hang tight, buddy, because I know he's going. Go ahead, Kipp.
No, I just people are going to believe what they want to believe, and they're going to throw rumors out there, and they're going to throw shade on anything that we did from the investigation side and from Bart's thermal. That's just the way it is. But obviously, after being there and having gone through the investigation and seeing everything that we saw, I just don't see that happening. But I thought it would be good to bring it up here.
No, and that's a very important thing. It's a very important thing. And before we get to Bart, because I want to give Bart the last word, is Phil Poland. All right, you are well known for your shit. You do a good job. Would they have done anything better or different, in your opinion? And we're all grown men here, so
no. I mean, you can examine something to death, and then you're just adding confusion on top of confusion. You look at the point that you need to make, you examine the point, and then you move on, and that's what they've done. And they did it very well. As far as addressing the other rumor situation, maybe they could have brought that up. I'm not sure, but Justin asleep in a hammock or in a cot next to the fire has absolutely nothing to do with the sighting or the investigation. He was just someone who led them up into the area where they thought they might have some interesting things happen.
And for good reason. I mean, right across the fucking pasture, right? So go ahead, Rob.
I'm sorry. I just want to add one thing before we get too far down the road. It's piggyback off of what Kipp was saying. Justin was sleeping with his rifle when the activity started. He offered his rifle. He offered his rifle if they needed it. If you have some buddies in the woods running around your campsite trying to pull fast, would you offer somebody a rifle to shoot your buddies?
Now, Bart, did you have a sidearm like a 9mm, 45, anything like that?
No.
You
no.
carry?
I carry periodically now. I'm with
Okay.
so many people that do, and I don't know if I'm stupid or lucky or what, but I just don't. Honestly, the only reason for a weapon for me is people. And there's
And
nothing.
Robert, you carry, right?
Yes.
Yes. And Kipp?
Yes.
Yes. And Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I do. So yeah. So it'd be foolish for somebody, and I wasn't even fucking there. It'd be foolish for somebody to show up and not fucking, and know the temperament of the people in the campfire, sleeping in the temperament of God knows where people are. So
Well, it's like equivalent to the guy in Montana that wore the Bigfoot suit and would run out into the highway scaring people, and he got ran over twice.
yeah, son of a bitch, and he's suing, right? His family's suing or something like that. But it is. It's like I think the important takeaway from here, and Bart, I'm going to tear you loose here in a second, is all I's were dotted and all T's were crossed. And Bart, I want you to tell us, just knock it down, if you went from here to here to get shit done and to prove your point. You have nothing to prove. You're not selling the shit to anywhere. Animal Planet, nothing. Go.
No, I was just saying I've never monetized. I guess you could say I have a different perspective coming into the field because
Right.
I bet I come from wealth and I've earned wealth, and I've never monetized my Bigfooting. I've always kept it as a pure passion. And
That's separate from this. Yeah.
My passion is I could have monetized the shit out of it, especially 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? And it was never even a thought. I don't care what people believe. What I care the most about is when people fuck with the fact patterns. That's what pisses me off. And
Fuck with the what?
fact pattern.
Okay.
By bringing in maybe something they think they heard or think they knew, and then make it sound like, oh yeah, no, that sounds logical. Like, oh yeah, no, that could have been hoaxed or whatever, just based off of that misinformation. Every interview, I encourage anybody, go listen to any interview I've given, anything I've ever written, and bring me back the inconsistencies. I've put it out there exactly how it's happened. And that rumor started with guys, just, someone being up there, started with someone twisting around what the reality was and saying that Sean had asked me to go for a walk. It's complete bullshit. It's the other way around. And people working off that, then it's easy to just go, you know what? Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So he took him for a walk. And you don't have any of the logistics of the surroundings. You have this isn't the Patterson film, but if it was, holy shit.
You would have knocked it out of the park, dude. Fuck.
Would it matter? Would it matter, for instance, stuff like how quick the trip got thrown together, all the variables that come in, the totality, would those things matter? The only reason it doesn't matter as much is because it's not that great footage. But if it was, you can guarantee every detail would matter. And the details and the facts are there. And I think I get the angriest when, I don't care if people believe or not believe, but don't twist the facts. Do your due diligence. Don't comment on things. Vet your opinion. Like, don't comment on things that you know nothing about. I think that's what frustrates me the most about Bigfooting and the field. I line up.
It is.
I line up more with the skeptics. Like Phil Poling, I'll take it. But if I'm Phil Poling and I look at how much of the field is bullshit, I don't even believe in Bigfoot. So I'll take what he gives me there based on what the facts are. Absolutely. From his perspective, I wouldn't believe it. And I wouldn't believe it. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. So from my perspective, I know we're not chasing shadows out there. I would have exited stage left a long time ago because I have no other objective. For me, it's always been the pursuit, proving that things are real. But you
don't want your own fucking TV show, dude? You don't want to be fucking hanging out with fucking
actually
whatever?
I absolutely don't want my own TV show. I realize that's a good question. Like Finding Bigfoot.
Honestly, I mean, I have to be honest because everybody's jealous because you have better footage than them. He must want his own TV show.
Yeah, no, TV was never part of what my passion is.
Right.
And as far as TV, hey, don't get me wrong, we did Finding Bigfoot. Those are my best friends. I love doing that. It's sentimental to do that with the guys, and I'm glad I did those, right? But I would have never gone on the show, left my wife and kids. I'd never have the time back. I know what's important in my life, and I know what my objectives are, and I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about it. But I'm very grateful because none of this in this investigation without Robert, who really has always been my mentor. I've known him since the first day I was in the field. I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I'm talking as far as being wilderness savvy. I know enough to be dangerous now because of Robert. You right? Guys,
I got to ask you a question though, honest, because you're all wound up now. Is what keeps you in this, knowing the frustration factor of all the bullshit out there? And this is probably a good question for all fucking for you guys. And what the fuck keeps you coming back? This is my last Bigfoot show on the channel because I just have to stop. I have to stop. And this, I'm leaving on a high note. But what keeps you in the game? We're going to start with Phil. What keeps you coming back to this shit every day? And I'm not calling it shit. I apologize for calling it shit. But what keeps you coming back to go, God, another fucking Bigfoot video? Jesus Christ.
I don't come back. I haven't come back in, I don't know, many months now. It's been many months since I produced another video because it's just repetition. It's the same thing over and over again. Over the hundreds of videos that I produced, there's not one thing that happens, at least that I could find recently, that you can't already find in the stuff that I've already done.
Because you can't even load the video up on your fucking computer. Yeah. It's like, fuck.
But I mean, I keep waiting for something fantastic, something that's going to really spark my interest enough for me to do another video. And so far, it has not happened.
It's just, it's fucking exhausting. Kipp, besides fucking being the 9 times fucking Bigfoot of the Year, Men's Health Bigfoot of the Year, and Rolling Stones Bigfoot of the Year. What keeps you coming back?
I was going to say the sexiest man in Bigfooting, but everybody knows it's Bart. But that's all right. We get that. He gets it all the time. He's so handsome.
No, he's GQ man, dude. What keeps you doing it? What keeps you fucking?
Because I enjoy going out in the woods and having fun, and it's guys. Robert and Bart are my best buds, and I just enjoy getting out in the woods. And I'm curious, and I tell people I think that I want to have a sighting. I think that I do, but it's for me. It's the excitement, the fun, and the friendships. I mean, that's honestly, it's like, and I'll just say it. I'm in it for me, and for me, it's because I'm not out to prove it to everybody. I'm not out to try and make a name for myself or anything. I just want to go out and enjoy the company of other people, be out in the woods. And, if I have a sighting or if something exciting happens, that's just a bonus for me. That's what keeps me going. I'm curious. I haven't had a sighting. I've had friends that have had, and, I hope maybe someday, like I said, I think that I want to. I know it's a life-changing thing. So, but yeah, so I'm in it for me.
So you vicariously live through their sightings and you're excited. There's nothing wrong with that. Phil, did we miss something? It sounded like you wanted to say one more thing.
No.
No. So, and Kipp, you're presently traveling. Where are you now?
I am west of Orland, California. I'm out at a campground.
Dumping your toilet, right outside of Walmart.
Yeah. No, I'm actually, I do what's called chasing 70 degrees. So we're here for now, and we'll be headed to Arizona in the next week or two. So
Bart, I'm sorry, Bart. We'll go to Robert. I think we talked about this because Robert, for those of you who are still with us, it's great to. Robert started out season 2 with us, and it was fucking awesome to have him on. What keeps you going? Like ticking, it's like you got other shit to do, right? So what keeps you, why would you answer Bart's phone call and go, oh, I'm going to go up there and fucking see if you saw a fucking Bigfoot? I'm playing the skeptic. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
But seriously. Why do you pick up the phone?
Well, this is all personal journey that I've been on. It's like those of us who spend a lot of time outdoors see weird stuff. I mean, it's things you can't explain. So I'm kind of I'm on a journey to figure out what it is. Like when I first went out, I never carried a camera, never carried a recording device. And I had some close friends that go, what the hell's wrong with you? You're supposed to be out looking for Bigfoot, but you have nothing to prove to anybody you found it or seen it. I go, well, I tell them the journey is not about proving to others. It's about self-enrichment. It's proving to myself what it is I experienced. And I liked my friends. I got 2 of them right here. that go out and stuff. I kind of like the
Wait, you got two?
judgmental.
Wait, there's four of us here.
Man.
There's five of us here. Wait a minute, you got two?
I haven't gone out with squatching with you yet. I've only gone
Jesus
squatching with
fucking Christ. Okay, he's got no. Okay, go on. I'm sorry. I'm just fucking with you. Go ahead.
That's what I meant. Yeah, it's just like I like my small circle of people I go out with, and I like the experience. I like meeting other people who are similar, have a similar interests, and so squatching is a fun thing. And I don't expect to find something every time, but I do like meeting people with similar interests with that. And I do. Oh, okay, here's the facts. I like eating the food cooked by Kipp and Bart. They are really good cooks.
Are they? Oh, wait a minute. Now we have a whole, that's a whole nother fucking show, dude. We can't even get into that, dude. All right. So Bart, I mean, it sounds like by all, and you ever been on a plane and you get a ticket and you're suddenly upgraded to first class, right? And you make that left turn and you're sitting in that big fucking seat and you got the champagne, you got the fucking stewardess that's hot. You did that back in 2012, right? You flew first class with Bigfoot, right?
I didn't
By
know.
all intents, now it's like, fuck, it's all downhill from here. What's going on?
No, I think what keeps me going is I know the money shot is attainable. I saw it in August of 2007 in Washington State.
Tell us about that in real brief, because we want to save that for another show.
It just basically saw the Sub-Zero, Bobo, Cliff, the guys, and on the third night, at that time, thermal very limited. Wally, our old friend Wally, you probably heard the name before. He helped supplied a lot of that stuff for us. Cliff had a couple of thermals, and we were in an area that had a lot of activity. A lot of our Washington people, BFRO, it's still been consistent to this day, though it's a little overplayed out. And I went back to relieve myself. And in pitch black, about 100 yards from where we were, came back. There was some step branch break, like alarmingly close to me, and kind of moseyed on back. Told Cliff, let me see the X200 XP. And it's funny because I've been there a million times, and in the hundreds of hours since, I've seen nothing. But even more so with my experience today, I watched what I thought was one of the female companions in our party. I thought was trying to go to the bathroom behind the tree because you only saw 10% of the subject, and doing some right and left behind the tree, and actually stepped out in the clear and saw the whole left side all the way down.
This was thermal though, right?
This thermal. Dropped to all fours, and not all fours, but knees down, arms extended. A lot of fast transitioning on the ground. A lot I could make out. Some of them were so fast I couldn't. I consider myself a pretty good observer, and there was a lot of things like, I was trying to snap my fingers, getting Cliff's attention. And it was weird because this thing was paying attention to me, not the other 14 people on the side that were totally oblivious to what was going on.
And that was a film crew, right?
No. These are just.
Oh, this wasn't Finding Bigfoot proper?
Yeah, just group of researchers.
That whole pile of shit that went out in the fucking.
Third night. So I saw this thing basically in a nutshell go up, go down, go up. At the last minute and a half I watched it, I saw the calves north. I mean, the whole profile from, head on the way down, long arms, big upper body, mostly in the upper extremities. It was mind-blowing. The hardest thing I ever did was take that imager off my eye.
Right. So let me ask you a question right there. Your fucking heart must have been racing, right? And your adrenaline pumping.
Yep. Totally.
And you're chasing that now, right? Though, because you've never seen it again. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just here we go, Robert. We're boring Robert again.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the presence of mind to know that, you know what I mean? It's like, I could sit here and watch this thing forever, or we could take a chance. And at that time to record, it wasn't pressing a button. It was actually putting a thermal on top of a bicycle helmet, holding a battery pack in front of you. You had to walk someone like a 90-year-old lady because they have no depth perception. I mean, a total different ball game. But Cliff,
I know, but it's so easy to go. You know what, dude? When I watched your footage, and I go, because I had some sugar run. It was up in the Allegheny National Forest, and it was a howl. I didn't see it, but I heard it. It was right there, and I just wanted to race wherever the fuck it was. And you think about that until it happens, and then you go, wait a minute, that thing sounds a little bit bigger than I am. So it's easier said than done, but it's like it keeps you going though, because you flew first class, you got your fucking ticket, right? You punched your ticket, you saw some good shit, dude.
I did, but I don't feel that way.
You're not done. You're not done.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I want to capture what I saw in 07. 07
Daylight within 50 yards.
And the technology is a whole different ballgame as
Yeah.
well. If I had a pulsar like I have today, Sierra's footage looked a lot different.
No, but here's the thing, Phil, what would it take personally, Phil? I know where you live up in Pacific Northwest. What would it take for you to be impressed of Bigfoot, like conditions and distance?
What do you mean by you mean as far as a visual?
I'm suddenly Phil pulling into nowhere. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
well,
have you ever had a sighting?
No, but I did have an audio experience, and it was very close and very loud. It was a howl, and it was definitely nothing other than what it could have been. That was a Sasquatch. That was in Oregon, and I was 16 years old.
Yeah, and that's the thing, but you're a smart guy. If you saw one, right? If you're driving down the road, right? What would it take?
You either know what something is or you don't. Everyone knows what a Sasquatch is supposed to look like. It doesn't look like a bear standing up on two legs.
But there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of misidentification.
Yeah, but if you saw a Bigfoot and you can identify it as a Bigfoot, then it's a Bigfoot.
I wouldn't fucking shut up. I'd be like, yo, dude.
No, yeah.
No, it's a deer. It was this. It was like, no, fuck you. It was a Bigfoot, dude.
It's easier to say what it's not. It's just like in this thermal video. I can tell you what it's not for sure.
And what it's not.
It's not a 6.5 foot tall naked guy without flashlights running around in the dark woods.
Right.
Okay. It's not a bear walking around on two legs in the woods. What could it be?
It's not a deer. It's not a deer.
Doesn't have 4 legs. There's 2 legs. So what could it be?
Someone's just a bear cub. A couple of them.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. So because we're winding down now, and I want to thank you guys for being on. But what have you heard? Anytime I would imagine. Here's the thing: is I've been investigating Bigfoot not that long, a couple of years, and I've been lucky. I've got some good howls that we've vetted through David Ellis, and we've been lucky to have that. But if I caught what you caught, I would have done the same thing. I think I would have done the same thing. I would have gone and taken my time to vet it, to post it, or not to post it, but to post it last after you want everybody to hate it. I would have gone to Phil and say, Phil, check this out. If you ever get back to my email, but get back to no, but what I'm saying is you want your friends to fucking prove you wrong, right? Because they're your friends. Right?
Is that for Bart?
No, it's for everybody. It's just and especially for Bart. It's like like, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's like winding down. It's like did you really think you had what you had, or were you willing to sacrifice? Like I got the lotto ticket, but I got the last number wrong.
I knew by it, so that there was nothing to hide. That just give it all and have it back.
That's awesome. That's fucking awesome. And
I was psychologically prepared from what happened 5 years earlier. I think that just, you know what I mean? I was ready. Like I felt like it was going to happen again, that eventually it would happen again. And you just never know. It may never happen again. But I guess you could say, my intangibles, I'm not some great researcher. My intangibles are hyper awareness and never taking that thing off my eye and being preemptive.
And right time, right place.
Right. And there's always going to be the right time, right place. You hear people say, oh, that's a great spot. I had nothing happen there. Well, maybe nothing happened there for 50 times and you were just there. That's what happened with me and Leiterman when we had the tree destruction. I slept in there a million nights and had nothing happen. And then it was back to back with him and Bobo. So it's right place, right time. Yeah, it's everything.
What I like to tell people is you have 100% better chance of having an experience or sighting if you go out in the woods. You get away from the computer.
That's right.
That's actually true.
There's something out there for everyone. I mean, I like to spend my time absorbing and listening, being with friends, listen to Kipp sing songs for me.
Oh,
And-
Jesus Christ. Nobody said Kipp was singing, dude. Fuck.
That's, I asked what song he's going to sing tonight for us.
No, we're cutting it off. We're just getting cut short. The network's chiming in, dude.
Yeah. So
I don't want to hear Kipp singing "I Got a Fast Car" by Tracy Chapman, dude.
Okay, no problem.
No. But anyway, Robert, go ahead.
If I had some evidence that really tickled my fancy and I wanted a second opinion, it wouldn't be on the internet. It would be with my circle of friends who scrutinize things to a point, and their honesty is the important thing. And like, if Bart asked me for my professional opinion, I would give it to him. Same for Kipp. And if I asked Kipp and Bart for their professional opinion, they would give it to me. In our relationship, well, we're okay with that and I respect what they have to say. And that's what people need to do, is surround themselves by people who aren't going to lie to them and say, oh, that's an awesome Bigfoot thing. That's cool. They would scrutinize it and be honest with them, because if more people were honest with other people about what evidence they were submitting, it would half the stuff on the internet. We wouldn't get the opportunity to watch and enjoy and laugh at.
I'm telling you, Robert, that I'm just venturing to guess that you guys and your this whole adventure was 0.005% of the video footage that's on the internet, and that might be generous. Correct me, Phil, if I'm wrong. There's just not a lot of credible shit out there.
Yeah, 99.9% BS.
Yeah. Well, on that note, folks, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. We are 2 hours and 21 minutes in. Jesus Christ, dude. I was supposed to put my mother to bed an hour ago. So that's it for, and I'm serious, dude. She's downstairs waiting. So that's it for me. Listen, for my guests, I have Kipp, Robert. I'm looking at everybody here. I've got Bart and my buddy Phil tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And season 3 of From Behind Tall Trees is right on the way. Guys, hang out for a second. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody, and we'll be right back.
That's all, folks.
You've been watching From Behind Tall Trees, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to C.A.R.C. Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. C.A.R.C. Relentless.